Good afternoon. My name is Cameron. I oversee facility development and new technology implementation for the Cheetah Conservation Fund. I'm based in Namibia and joined with my colleague Stijn, who's an ecologist, also based in Namibia. We both have also had the opportunity to visit our operations in Somaliland, so I have a little bit of hands-on experience in that regard. Today we're going to go over a little bit of overview of what CCF does and mainly focus on what we've done in Namibia and what we've learned from that and how we're implementing that in Somaliland to tackle the illegal wildlife trade. So, as mentioned, we operate two facilities. The Research and Education Center in Namibia is our home base for the past 33 years now. And just recently, we have developed the Rescue and Conservation Center in Somaliland. Cheetahs are a very unique species that are facing critical population decline. In the 1900s, there were over 100,000 individuals, whereas today we see less than 7,100 across only 9% of the historic range. Challenges of studying cheetahs in general are resulting from a wide-ranging species that cover 77% outside of protected areas and in very low densities. So it's very hard to track these animals across large landscapes. And this also inherently results in large amounts of human-wildlife conflict. It also results in illegal wildlife trade being quite present, as it's hard to keep track of animals because of the wide ranging. Our center in Namibia was established in 1990. It features a 15,000 hectare ecological reserve, as well as a model farm for cattle, sheep, goats, and other small stock. We employ over 150 people, 90% of which being locals, about half of that being women. We also have a small cheetah museum and host daily tourism activities, as well as a small ecotourism lodge to generate tourism revenue and local and international awareness. This is an overview of our campus, and we do employ or have deployed a LoRaWAN network providing coverage of all 10 farms that we oversee, as depicted here. The coverage is a little bit less than shown, as this is a general expanse. This green here is the Waterberg Plateau National Park, which is a tall escarpment nearby, and that does prohibit that LoRa range. So as part of that LoRa development, it was done in partnership with Smart Parks. We have 3 gateways and utilize it for vehicle tracking, as well as management and monitoring of tank levels, of diesel tanks, water tanks, and also temperature monitoring for genetic sample storage and cool rooms such as meat rooms and other storage of food and cold goods. So this has saved us immense amount of time and money in not having to physically drive 10s, 20s of kilometers to check tanks, whereas we can get real-time monitoring at any given moment. Additionally, we have worked with Wildlife Protection Solutions recently to deploy 3 cameras as a pilot project to see how useful that could be for our security needs throughout, and so far it has been quite positive. Our direct experience with LoRa, we do experience, as with any remote tower, you have animal interference, and we do have experience with extensive baboon damage that we are constantly trying to battle. Vehicle trackers have been moderately successful, though we do have intermittent coverage as resulting of the terrain. In that sense, stationary sensors have been proven to be very effective, as they are not impacted by the terrain. As long as they are in an appropriate location, we see that they are very successful and very consistent. As such, animal collars, where an animal is constantly moving in and out and very lower to the ground, we do see that it is quite intermittent, though we have had limited testing with only 2 or 3 individuals. In the future, we do look to expand our usage of EarthRanger. We want to monitor gate access with similar LoRa sensors that just tell us whether gates are opened or closed, so we can see if personnel are accessing areas they shouldn't be at hours that are not appropriate. We also look to utilize EarthRanger to assess vehicle speeds and alert our security teams if people are exceeding a set threshold, as well as potentially rolling out patrols as our security capacity expands. Moving to Somaliland, as a little bit of a history, our involvement with that illegal wildlife issue began in 2011 with conversations with the local government and the surrounding communities. It was not until 2018 that we ourselves actually intook the first cubs. There were various confiscations prior to this. However, they were managed by the government themselves and actually passed on to other entities outside of Somaliland. However, due to modifications to the legislation, they were no longer allowed to be exported outside of Somaliland, which resulted in them needing to go somewhere within Somaliland itself. So this is where we took on the task. So very quickly, it became a lot of cubs. By 2021, we had over 50 cubs in our care, and these were all managed and taken care of within the city itself across these what we called safe houses. So it was 3 different plots of land where we built up and established various enclosures that were relatively small for the number of individuals that were hosted there. But with the rapid intake, it was the best we could do for the time. However, we quickly realized we needed to expand to be able to treat these animals appropriately. As such, we went into development of and design of a larger rescue and conservation center. Working with the local governments, they did allot us a set area of land about a half-hour north of the capital, Hargeisa. This was to be the seed to what would eventually become the first national park of Somaliland. That is still in development. However, we have started and completed the first stage of construction, which is multiple staff houses, as well as a clinic and multiple hectare enclosures for the animals. So this is what we have at the moment. We started construction in early 2022 and now host over 20 employees on site, have moved all 94 cheetahs out there, as well as 1 leopard and 1 caracal, which are a result of mistaken identities that were also confiscated because people thought they were cheetahs and they came to us. So the cheetahs are doing much better now. We have groups of anywhere from 4 to 9 in a single enclosure, which is a little bit atypical for cheetahs. However, we have seen great success, and we kind of attribute it to the fact that they've grown up together from a very young age. But we are very proud of how far this has come in such a short period of time, and we are looking to continue to expand into the future. More enclosures and potentially look at a similar education center and place to host local community members for further education and training, similar to that we do in Namibia. However, we will have to see what is appropriate as time moves on. The priority at this time is the health and safety of the existing cheetahs and being able to accommodate future growth in the likely but unfortunate event that we get additional cubs in. So with that, I'll hand it over to Stijn to talk about Namibia.
Can I have the pointer? All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stijn. I'll go a bit more into detail on which monitoring programs we implement, both in Somaliland to actually actively tackle the illegal wildlife trade, but as well as some additional explanation on some of our long-term monitoring programs in Namibia and how we use the 30 years of experience that we actually have with cheetah conservation to tailor our programs to the needs and the needs of Somaliland. So, having established our facility since 1990 in Namibia, we work on all aspects relating to the biology and conservation of cheetahs. We work on purely based research programs, ecology, genetics, as well as more applied programs focusing on the restoration of habitat, as well as human-wildlife conflict mitigation programs. And we focus as well much on education and training, both of school groups as farmers. We put all this knowledge nicely in this book, which was published first in 2018, It's a nice collaborative effort of all experts on cheetahs, summarizing all the topics that are presented here, and it's a valuable resource to address some of these pressing challenges that we are facing in Somaliland. So what we learned in Namibia is, first of all, that's very important to establish some long-term baseline programs to get an idea what is out there, what lives in the area. So this is an overview of our land that we have in north-central Namibia that we manage as a wildlife reserve, as a model farm as well. It's a free-ranging system, so no fencing, which allows wildlife to co-occur with livestock on some of these farms. Some of the programs have been started already in the 90s, have gradually expanded and incorporated the newest technologies, which advance our activities and make it a lot more efficient to actually do these activities. So we do long-term prey counts to get an idea how our prey populations are doing. We do frequent camera trapping surveys to get an idea about our cheetah population as well as populations of other carnivores. We do deploy collars on cheetahs that are roaming across the area. And the gray polygons are sort of the farms that we manage. And you can easily see how the movements of cheetahs easily cross our property and move into our neighbor land. We also do sport transects. And we don't only look for sport, we also look for scat. We actually have a scat detection dog program, a dog that is trained to find the species of cheetah and also African wild dog, which greatly enhances our sample collection for genetic purposes, which is very valuable. So long-term monitoring programs gave us a chance to design and see what works best. We do need to work across a much larger area than only the farms that are under our management. Therefore, we are part of the Greater Waterberg landscape, which is a multiple-use landscape reaching almost 20,000 square kilometers. It consists out of a national park, the Waterberg National Park, surrounded by freehold farmland, which is associated in a freehold conservancy. And then to the east, we have 4 communal conservancies. So this is a large landscape, but it's really the scale that's needed to protect the wide-ranging species like the cheetah. So therefore, we designed and implemented some applied conservation programs. Our livestock guardian dog program is one of our flagship programs where we breed and place these Anatolian shepherd dogs with small stock herds, and farmers are very satisfied with the effectiveness of the livestock guardian dogs. We have also a variety of programs which fall under the umbrella of our Future Farmers and Future Farmers of Africa and Future Conservationists of Africa programs, targeting farmer communities and young people to engage them in conservation efforts, to reach out to them and explain the value of predators in the ecosystem and support their livelihoods in this ecosystem. Another project that we actually recently implemented is sort of an early warning system. It's a bit more southeast of Namibia. Again, on the freehold farmlands of Namibia, where actually most of the cheetahs still reside. There we sort of engage with farmers by having collared cheetahs and that are part of early warning system. So we have geofences put up around the farm boundaries. Whenever a collared cheetah moves into a farm, an alert will be sent to the farmer. Whenever the cheetah moves out again, an alert will be sent again, and sort of to actively inform the farmers about presence of cheetahs on the land so they can protect their vulnerable livestock. Of course, the more farms you engage, the more alerts that will be sent out. As you can see, you might reach a point that there will be like a constant breach of alerts sending out to different farmers. We can also not color all the individuals that are roaming in the landscape. There will always be some predators moving around in this landscape. that we might not be able to track. But what we see, it's a great way of engaging in the farm with the farmers. It established sort of a conversation to say, hey, we have colored individuals on your farm, and they agree with us to be part of the system, that they will not prosecute predators, but instead contact us whenever they have a predator problem, so we can find out some non-lethal alternatives. So again, a large landscape. We reach 120 farms, really the scale needed to work with cheetahs. And that's evidenced as well from a camera trap survey that we did in this red boundary box, where we identified more than 65 individuals in this landscape, a density exceeding probably more than one individual per 100 square kilometers, which is really high for cheetahs. So just to show some of our programs that we trialed and implemented over the years, and see what might eventually work. So now we are challenged with how can we apply all this knowledge to Somaliland. We are in sort of a comfortable situation that we can build on this 30 years of knowledge. But the situation in Somaliland is, of course, very difficult and driven by the illegal wildlife trade. So first of all, it's important to identify what drives the illegal wildlife trade, and it's merely to serve the exotic pet market in the Middle East. So people, mostly in the Middle East, want cheetahs as pets. They serve as a status symbol, and that's why they are being trafficked into these Gulf states. Cheetahs are very difficult to breed in captivity, so that's why they are being sourced out of the wild, and they are being sourced from a region where there's regional poverty. So people are desperate to find a source of income. There's very little law enforcement, so which all sort of facilitates this illicit network. We estimate that the 200 to 300 cubs are trafficked annually into the Middle East, and probably only 20% survives the journey. And even when they reach the destination countries, they know very short lifespans because of the poor care they receive even in the destination countries. So we're trying to understand how these routes are going. This is a recent overview that we collated, and where we think cheetahs might first of all be coming from, the routes they are taking to eventually reach the Middle East. And it looks like that they are sourced from the broader region within the Horn of Africa, specifically trafficked through this narrow street at the end of the Red Sea. It's very short distance to reach Yemen from there, so quite a lot of boats easily make the transfer. And then they go into all kinds of different directions, even outside of the Middle East. We've had cases. Since our presence, we actively supported a lot of confiscations, mainly focused in Somaliland. And also, just to give you an overview what the monetary value is of cheetahs, ranges from $250 in the first stages, so where the poachers hand it over to the middleman, and easily reaches values of $10,000 and more. There was even a case, I think, where a cheetah cub was sold for $50,000, or advertised for $50,000. And there's also an increasing trend over time that these cubs are becoming more expensive. So, yeah, very interesting how this all works. On top of that, we actually don't know anything about cheetahs in the Horn of Africa. That makes it even more challenging. The IUCN range, the official range delineated by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, lists the cheetah status in the Horn of Africa as possibly extinct. We only recently start finding out where these cubs are actually originated from, which seems to be the broader region within the Horn of Africa, but as well this complex within northern Kenya, South Sudan, seems to be an important source population. And even during our recent field efforts within Somaliland, we find direct and indirect evidence of the presence of cheetahs in this region. So a lot going on. Therefore, we, as a Cheetah Conservation Fund, are there to mainly support the government in developing a protected areas network. Started with the confiscations, an active need to take care of this urgent crisis. But now we are at the stage that we developed the Cheetah Conservation Rescue Center, that we can provide the care for these 90 cubs. So now we can actually think ahead what is needed now to support cheetah population, and not only the cheetah population, it's also about the landscape and the habitat that these cheetahs live in. Which is very interesting. The Horn of Africa is in many aspects unique in terms of biodiversity, a lot of endemism, a lot of interesting species, and the status of most species is unknown. So we are looking at community-based conservation. It's a pastoralist-dominated landscape. People are quite omnipresent in the landscape as well as the livestock. So we're looking at the conservancy model, where Somaliland officials have visited already both the Kenyan conservancies as well as the Namibian conservancies to get an idea how these models work and how they can potentially tailor these strategies to be implemented in Somaliland. And Somaliland is amongst the most vulnerable countries for climate change. It's become already very much evident in various parts of the country. So establishing some sort of a biodiversity conservation network will be very much needed to improve climate resilience of the communities there. So these are some of our programs that we have to start doing to get the baseline idea of what's going on within the area and how we eventually can design such a protected areas network. Started with questionnaire surveys. This one conducted in the western Audal region of Somaliland. The route there shows the tracks driven. We did regular questionnaires through the different villages, and actually all the blue and green dots indicates reports where communities have seen cheetahs, but also where there have been incidents of conflict. So it's been very helpful to see where cheetah reports occur, as well as to see what's needed and what lives amongst the community in terms of wildlife and biodiversity conservation. To get a better understanding about the ecological baseline within the area, we are also looking into camera trapping surveys. We recently deployed 30 camera traps as a pilot project nearby the Cheetah Rescue and Conservation Center. A rather small scale. It's more of a trial to get an idea on the wildlife presence in this area and to see or to make sort of an assessment on protected area feasibility, where it's eventually even possible to establish a protected area and the rich status. I think the camera traps are about to be taken down, so it'll be quite exciting to see what we find on these camera traps. But with that in mind, we have already been looking forward to our next plans of camera trapping, which will be a massive effort spanning the whole broader region, where we're looking at 6 different camera trapping surveys, each spanning an area of 20,000 square kilometers, where we will place around 80 paired camera traps within the area, and that will be very much dedicated to get an idea about the occurrence of cheetahs within this region. But the information that we will collect will serve much more in terms of getting an idea about mainly mammal diversity. And soon there's also key biodiversity areas workshop planned, where CCF will advise on mammal presence within the area, which will also serve to delineate the potential protected areas network within this region. A different approach that we recently started doing as well is using and engaging local people as wildlife observers. So again, started out around the Cheetah Rescue and Conservation Center. 3 local guys from the nearby communities. We trained them with the use of SMART. to do patrols and record wildlife observations, as well as to be a point of contact within the community and to be able to report on any case of human-wildlife conflict or illegal wildlife trafficking. So we trained them with the use of SMART. This is just from the past 3 months where they have been patrolling. We asked them to patrol in a circular pattern around their villages. The one on top needs a bit more motivation, but they will eventually get there. This ones are all the wildlife observations made, with the black dots being signs, indirect signs of cheetah presence. Sometimes difficult to verify, of course, whether it's an actual case, but at least we engage these local communities in our activities and try to send out the message and engage them in biodiversity conservation. And some recent successes from this program is shown here. So we did get a photo in from a wild cheetah surrounding our facilities. I can assure you it's not one of the 90 cheetahs that escaped. It is definitely a wild cheetah. So it's great to see that they actually live around our new facilities. And then I think 2 weeks ago, Abdullahi, the wildlife observer on the left, got contacted or found information from Hargeisa that someone was selling cheetah cubs. He transferred the information to us, and we got in contact with the ministry, and we were able to confiscate these 2 cheetah cubs and arrested 5 of the traffickers. So some really nice recent successes from this small-scale project, which we as well now are scaling up. I think last month we trained 14 additional wildlife observers from villages more closely to the Ethiopian border, where we actually think most of the trafficking occurs. They've been trained at our facilities at the center, which is a great place for training. We have 90 cheetahs, so they can learn how the tracks look, how scat look, how we can collect samples and such. So they are now in their first weeks of data collection from these different villages. So a quick overview of what we are trying to do on the ground to get a better idea on cheetahs and wildlife in this area.
So as you can see, this is not a small scale project, and there's no way we could do this alone. So we have a variety of partners and various technologies that we've employed to assist us with the operations so far, such as illicit, Twix, Cortex Edge. We are also working actively with the destination countries, so such as UAE and Saudi Arabia, that are actually where the demand for these cheetahs come from. So we understand that if we don't reduce or eliminate the demand, then there'll always be someone trying to sneak cheetahs by us. So we are actively working with those countries as well, and we'll actually be hosting a global cheetah summit in Dubai at the end of January to try to continue that conversation and engage those countries even more so with international partners to better this effort. So challenges that we currently face and will continue to face in Somaliland include import issues. So this is a country that is at war on and off with its neighbor Somalia. So the country itself is very hesitant to import technologies. We've had issues importing just your typical VHF radio. So bringing in large amounts of camera traps, it's possible, but it's by no means straightforward. So that's something we have to keep in mind as we employ things and look to deploy other technologies in the future. Additionally, there are no established protected areas across this entire country, so that adds to the challenge, as well as inherent to the newness of a lot of this is the local communities are not familiar seeing a camera trap on a tree or an antenna mounted on a pole. So there is a lot of tampering and theft that we've experienced. Some camera traps that stand put up were taken down literally the next day. somehow, even though it took them hours to get out to that location. So that's something that is not unseen anywhere else in the world, but is definitely very prevalent here, as well as, so that ties into the sociopolitics of the area, getting people familiar with the idea of conservation, and the fact that we will have a presence there, but we want to engage them actively to conserve their area themselves, and it's not just us doing what we want to do. We want them to have that goal themselves. We also have to keep in mind expandability, because unfortunately it is inevitable that we will continue to get cubs throughout the process or throughout time. So we are trying to keep that in mind with our facility. We do believe we've positioned it in a location that will enable us to continue to expand, but hopefully we don't have to expand indefinitely. Also, this country is a country that just has no or very, very limited capacity to produce anything themselves. So 99% of goods are imported from the UAE and surrounding countries. So in regards to quickly being able to repair something or get support on something in country is almost impossible. Your things that you would just get off the shelf, even in moderately developed countries, take 3-4 days to track down while you're there. So that requires a significant change in mindset while developing a facility, and even deploying other technologies. Going to get a couple AA batteries might take an entire day versus a quick run to a store. So looking forward, security is a major concern. We do have special police units that are employed through us that protect all of our staff and the cheetahs. But again, we are building a facility in a relatively unstable country, so there will always be conflict. That is a potential. We are looking to, as Stan mentioned, a large area survey with camera trapping as well as community conservation officers. From a facility standpoint, we are looking to optimize our operations. A lot of this has been done very rapidly out of necessity. So we're now in the stage of, fortunately, there are less cubs coming in at the moment. Fingers crossed that stays the same. But we are trying to take a step back and optimize what we have now to ensure that we're using our resources to the best that they can be used. And to that extent, we are hopefully going to be building additional enclosures soon to get ahead of the cheetahs and not have to have a backlog and not have the room that would be appropriate. And of course, we're always looking for new partnerships to assist in all of our efforts throughout Somaliland and the Horn of Africa, because ideally we want to take this unfortunate event of illegal cheetah trade and turn it into an opportunity for biodiversity conservation with this new facility and our efforts there. So, thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah, really interesting and looks like some good work. Just two questions. One with regards to the camera traps that you've had theft of and damage to. How have you responded? What is the kind of, have you managed to find a way to secure your camera traps better or create awareness around trying to, teach guys not to tamper with them or steal them?
Right. There was some miscommunication, I think, about the area where the camera traps were to be placed. I went out to place them. I was informed that there was no people, no livestock, that you can just go ahead and place camera traps everywhere. Turned out that was not the case. We did talk to the local communities, but we did also go ahead and placing cameras, and indeed some did disappear. So not really the right approach. Eventually, we had a whole team going out and consistently checking on the camera traps, engaging with all the communities. And at that point, we managed to get everyone on board. And as of that time, no camera traps were taken away. So, yeah, it's very understandable, and from the moment you explained, they were like very eager to watch the camera traps and to maintain them.
Cool. And then regarding your wildlife observers, have you had any issues at all in terms of the sort of other community members, sort of there being any animosity towards them or any conflict with locals with regards to what they're doing, any potential conflict with potential poachers? I'm just asking from a perspective of, we've also got what we call community conservation monitors, and that's often an area of kind of risk that we need to manage in terms of potential conflict with poachers.
Right. We ask the local community leaders to select or to provide the community game guards or wildlife observer from the villages. So we trusted on the decision made that would be the right person to do the job. I'm not actively involved with on-site managing of these wildlife observers, but I think that's indeed a very important point to look after and then to understand how the dynamics within the community work.
Yeah, thanks very much.
With no protected areas established at the moment, is there any scope for rewilding of any of the cheetahs from your facility up there?
That's indeed a good question, and hopefully we can. I mean, 90 cheetahs, that's more than a percentage of the estimated wild cheetah population. The challenge with those is that they came in at a very, very young age, usually a matter of weeks. And from our rewilding efforts in Namibia, from the orphaned cubs that come in, we sort of have a threshold that we won't rewild cheetahs that came in at the age younger than 6 months, because they don't have the experience of hunting. So from that aspect, there will be a challenge to make them transition into the wild again. Another consideration is as well that some of these cubs came in with diseases, and we don't want to introduce any diseases into wild populations. So a lot of considerations to be made, but ideally, I think that would be a very valuable source population for the broader region and even for potential rewilding efforts into Saudi Arabia. So, yeah.
I just want to say fantastic work. That was a really good presentation, guys. And with the cheetahs that you have within the program, do you do genetic work on them, like when they come in to find out relationships or anything to do with origin? Are you able to do that?
So we try to do that. The challenge is we don't have genetic samples of wild cheetahs yet. So the map with the massive camera trapping survey depicted, the goal is that we would also collect scat samples, ideally from these different areas, so we can identify indeed where the source populations lie. The other map that I populations are located. And that sort of matches as well some of our anecdotal records of where people get the cubs from. But getting the genetic verification, I think that will be very helpful. But then it will be again the challenge of finding samples at the first place. But.
Okay, can I have one more question? I also wanted to ask about the early warning system that you mentioned within Namibia as well. You mentioned that the farmers need to call you if they have conflict. Is there also a prerequisite that they need to have some sort of a mitigation system in place as well, so that they don't just use the system as a reactive approach?
Right. So it started off indeed as an idea to be able to negotiate with the farmer, because Well, it started off the idea of farmers contacting us with the fact that they have a cheetah trapped on their farm and they want to get rid of it. So we then came to this early warning system agreement that we will notify you with alerts if we can release this cat with especially for the farms that we reached out yet to. So we're still trying to figure out what's working best, but we didn't see yet like a reaction that more farmers are trapping cats now and getting collars, and that's at least not the case. But
for the seized cheetahs that you got in Djibouti, what are the drivers of those seizures? Is it intelligence-led operations? Is it routine enforcement operations? Like, what is causing the seizures?
yeah.
I don't believe we've had any seizures in Djibouti. Yeah, it's all Somaliland.
Oh, I'm sorry, Somaliland. I'm
Right,
sorry.
yeah. Although we have seen a lot of the seizures be moving closer and closer to Djibouti as we have intercepted more. A lot of it is actually a lot of word of mouth. So it is just like we spread that this is something that we need to be stopping. And then there's a lot of interconnectivity within the ministries themselves and the different police forces that then hear thing from someone and someone. And that is something we are looking to find a better method to keep track of and a record of, because yes, long term it would be of value to have a clearer picture of if there's an underlying more organized aspect to this, or if it is more of a just chaotic individual process. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of it is just word of mouth, and so the person that actually told the person, and so on and so forth, it's hard to track. But yeah, to my knowledge, there's not much of the intelligence side of things.
We recently engaged in this Twix platform by Traffic. The abbreviation stands for, I don't know, I forgot. Trade in wildlife information exchange, so sort of a platform where governments and organizations can exchange this information, which will help because we see a lot of trafficking from Ethiopia into Somaliland, as well as this Cortex Edge tool, which we recently start using. We'll try to identify patterns in the data that we feed it to see if we can identify any sort of networks and which, like how they are connected with potentially other illicit networks. But yeah, to add on to that, like law enforcement specifically for wildlife trafficking was also completely absent. So we had to develop a whole legal framework to even be able to prosecute these traffickers. The very first confiscations we couldn't. Will expand into the broader region of the Horn of Africa. So yeah, I think we'll see down the line how things develop and where we identify source populations, because that will be eventually guiding our future efforts. Okay, no. Thank you very much then.